Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 23 of the Primetime Rundown. Alongside my guys, Tyler Adelle, Nick Partain, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot be thankful enough here for everyone tuning in on this Saturday evening, just a few minutes after the rounds 4 through 7 of the NFL draft. We have alongside us here ESPN on ABC's production assistant, Rob DeLuca. Cannot thank you enough for joining us. You actually were just on my Zoom interview series about a week and a half ago. So welcome back to the show. And I see you're sporting your Giants pride. God help you. Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, it's, it could be worse. You could be a Jets fan like Nick, but hey, listen, listen, I will tell you something. After the last 3 days, Jets fans have a lot of hope. I don't know so much about Tyler and the Giants first round pick, because Tyler was, let's call it, very vocal about his new offensive tackle, Andrew Thomas. But once again, just to get things started, we're live here on the Eastern Observer, also simulcasted on YouTube, and in partnership with the Black Media Networks. Cannot thank you all enough for tuning in at 7 o'clock all the way until 9. We are here live with you from Long Island, and also from where DeLuca is, Rob DeLuca, in New Jersey. So we bring a little bit of New Jersey and a little bit of Long Island, and put it all together. So let's get things started. Nick, I want to hear about what you think how Joe Douglas did, because truthfully, I think he did phenomenal.
Yeah, I think he did a great job. He followed the path that the draft should have taken him, taking a tackle early. He was able to get one of the big four prime tackles. Protecting Sam Darnold needs to be priority number one. Their offensive line was a sieve at basically all five positions last year. He went out, he attacked the position in free agency, he attacked it in the draft. He was able to phenomenally put together now a deep group that has competition at every position, talent at every position, a mixture of youth and veterans. He did a phenomenal job there. Then he gets Denzel Mims after trading down in the second round. He's able to get the receiver. He signed Perriman to replace Robbie Anderson. Mims is another guy to play on the outside. Very athletic player, big, fast, tall, athletic, phenomenal choice for a developmental receiver. He should play right away, and he can only develop further from where he's already at. Then after that, I like the pick of the safety. At first, I didn't understand. I thought it might have signaled a trade of Jamal Adams. It doesn't. He's more of a Marcus May type, a center fielder type of safety. So he doesn't threaten Jamal Adams at all. He should still be re-signed. And with May's injury history, this is a good position to have depth at. He can also possibly play a little bit of corner, this kid. So having depth and versatility in the secondary is a good thing. Another center fielder, another guy you can play on passing downs. The Jets have struggled for years in third and longs and watched themselves get picked apart in obvious passing downs because they do lack a pass rush still. It's good to have more cover guys in the secondary. You got another offensive lineman, just adds to everything else he's done there. Getting a developmental quarterback, only having Darnold and David Fales on the roster wasn't going to cut it. Having another kid that they can at least groom a little bit, who has a big arm, has some talent, maybe down the road could at least be a backup. That's really all we're looking for at this point. They got a punter. They obviously weren't happy with Locke Edwards. You bring in another punter. This kid was the best punter in college football last year, so that can't be a bad thing. But the fact that he was able to trade down a few times, he acquired a lot of extra picks. He got a sixth-round pick next year. Then he traded their last pick that they had for a corner, Quincy Wilson from the Colts, who had a bad year last year, but two productive years the 2 years before. He was a second-round pick in 2017, still a young player. The Jets need bodies at cornerback. They also drafted a corner who was coming off a bad injury, so he may be able to contribute right away. Quincy Wilson will be able to. So he added to basically every level of the team they really needed bodies at. I like the running back too. It's the one guy I didn't mention. Le'Veon Bell's not getting younger. They really didn't have any young players at running back. It's somebody you can develop to see if he can either take over for Bell next year or at least be a complement this year. A tough runner, a guy that was able to split out wide, catch the ball. Not a ton of speed. They probably could use more speed at running back, but I like that this guy can catch passes as well as run between the tackles. So I think Douglas did a great job. He let the draft come to him. He traded down. He got more picks. He got good value. He didn't reach. He didn't panic. Trading up is usually a problem. He didn't take a running back early. He hit a lot of their needs. I think it was a great job all around. I'm very happy with what he did.
And not only that, too, you look at the overall the depth that Joe Douglas took. He started off with Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle out of Louisville, first round, 11th overall. And I just want to touch on Mekhi Becton. And I think all four of us have seen the draft, especially round number 1. We were actually supposed to be on the air due to unfortunate circumstances. We did not come on, so cannot thank Rob DeLuca enough. But Rob, did you see how Mekhi Becton, he jumped out of the pool? And that was, I think, the coolest thing. I want to know your thought about what this guy could bring to the other side of the locker room for the Jets. Even though you're a Giants fan, of course.
Did you see him pushing the car?
It was unbelievable.
This guy's a maniac. He's gonna destroy people.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what Nick was gonna say. This kid is a freak. Like I think it's overall a great pick for the Jets, and I was really impressed by what the Jets did. Actually, I was like sitting here as a Giants fan, watching the team across the hall doing great things. Meanwhile, I'm watching my team address needs, but at the same time, doubling down on the same position over and over again. So it's like, I got no problem with depth, but at the same time, when you start with a reach in the first round, you don't know where your head's going to be at for the rest of the draft. But I did like Dave Gettleman's recovery in the second round in sweeping up Xavier McKinney.
Yeah, well, that one, and it's a perfect segue because I thought that the Giants were going to take Isaiah Simmons at 4. And I thought, you know what, because the linebacking core was so bad, I also thought that the secondary for the Giants was absolutely atrocious. DeAndre Baker had a tough time converting from college over to the pros. And then I realized that, well, they also still need some offensive line help because Nate Solder has been however many millions dollars of trash for the Giants. I think the last year and a half or 2 years that he's been on the roster. And he was really supposed to be the left tackle that is supposed to bring, that's supposed to conclude Eli Manning's career and, for the start, I guess, of Daniel Jones's career. And that hasn't really panned out. Let's hear a little bit of banter. So you thought, Rob, that it was a decent pick. Tyler didn't think so.
I mean, it's a reach. The good news about this kid is he can play the left or the right. But the issue with that at the same time is I really wanted to see a trade down, knowing that Dave Gettleman was going to go offensive line about 2 hours before the draft. That's what I was informed that it's gonna that's what was gonna happen. So I was like, you know what, fine, trade for some defense, and we'll take somebody on the offensive line in a later pick. But then, lo and behold, Dave Gettleman in Dave Gettleman style, too early on the pick, and now we hope for the best with Andrew Thomas.
Tyler, you have the microphone all to you.
In the last 10 years, just 10.
Only 10.
Of all offensive linemen to get picked in the top 5. How many have worked out?
I can name one.
2. Quentin Nelson, Chris Long. And Chris Long is a long shot for working out. He's
Kyle
not
Long.
that
Kyle Long, right?
Kyle Long, Chris Long, I don't care what his name is.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Whatever Long was. Chris, I thought was the defensive end.
Yeah, Kyle. Kyle was the
an offensive lineman in the top 5 picks is always a garbage idea. And the fact that the idea
Nelson was number 6, kiddo. So you're down to I'm helping you out.
Whatever. Taking an offensive lineman that early never works out. It's a garbage idea. And let alone it came from a garbage GM. What else is new? We thought Garth Snow was bad. This guy makes Garth Snow look like a genius. There's so many needs that this team could have went after. This team's defense has sucked for years. The offense is the least of their problems right now. Barkley can break through a stack of trees. You put 3 trees in front of the guy, and he's going to break for 20 yards half the time. The defense has been in the bottom 5% of the league every year. It's atrocious. They needed something, and they let it walk to Arizona. I
have to agree. Yeah.
It takes a lot for the Giants of all teams to floor me because I really don't care about them anymore. But my Lord, that was brutal.
Yeah. No, well, I will tell you this. When I saw the Giants, and by the way, for all of those, I know Rob was not here the last time. Tyler does have, quote, a Pepsi right there, not a Coke.
It's still not a Coke, but
it's still right, and that's going to be the ongoing theme. It should just be hashtag not a Coke. You know what? That's actually not a bad idea. We just got to make sure we get those naming rights. No, you know what? I got to tell you this. I think when the Giants passed on Isaiah Simmons, I was really confused. But then I had a few people tell me, well, obviously Nate Solder is terrible. You have Will Hernandez, but he can only do so much. And then you also have a part of I believe the Odell Beckham trade. Kevin Zeitler was a part of that deal in the return package.
Not a bad lineman.
Right. And he's not that bad. But again, you still need a total of 5. And 2 out of those 5, and Nick, our math person here, that is under 50%.
That's 40% actually.
Right. Exactly.
40,
there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm glad Nick is here to
do basic math.
Exactly. But listen, that's why he's here. So when I saw that, I thought that, okay, well, it's going to go immediately after that, or just before. You had Detroit pick Okudah from Ohio State, which was, I think, a fantastic pick. And then then right after that, then you had Justin Herbert go to the LA Chargers.
And then you also the Giants wanted him last year until he decided school.
And then you also had Tua Tagovailoa go to Miami. And then falling into the lap of Arizona was Isaiah Simmons, who really by rights can obviously, Chandler Jones can play both a 3-4 outside linebacker or a 4-3 wide end. And what he brings to the table, and now what this kid Isaiah Simmons brings to the table, to have those two along with Patrick Peterson and a slowly reforming or rebuilding Cardinals team, I think, in my opinion, the most underrated pick of the entire first round was the Arizona Cardinals taking Isaiah Simmons. I do not know how well I think he's going to do fantastic in Arizona with those two guys that I just mentioned. And they're slowly trying to get back to their, let's call it NFC championship or crown in 2008. I have a long ways to go, but they started off obviously with that trade with David Johnson. And then it again, back to the Giants with their issues. Rob, talk a little bit more about the Giants, and I want to see if Nick either agrees or disagrees with you, because he is probably the best one that knows a lot about the Giants and his hatred for Eli Manning, in addition with me.
Oh, you didn't have to do that. They're going to yell at me now.
Whoa.
That's all right. I got you.
Whoa.
Listen, I'm a Jets fan. I'm going to hate Eli Manning. It's just natural.
Number 10 is
the last time your team had a real quarterback, you weren't alive.
Oh, boy.
He has a
the other
point there. So, other than I could rant all day about why Eli Manning is going into the Hall of Fame first ballot, but I will digress from that.
That'll be for episode number, never. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Word. Yeah, I mean,
the Eagles are going in.
Look, Andrew Thomas, I gave that pick around my own personal grade a solid C, because I wanted defense. I was adamant about taking Isaiah Simmons at number 4. There was not even a question. That's the second best player in this draft outside of Chase Young. And seeing him go to knowing that Daniel Jones could die for the next 10 years every time we play Washington is another very nice little adversary there. But
yeah,
moving on to, then he recovered, took Xavier McKinney. I really hope he knows something about this kid, Matt Pert, out of UConn, who's another lineman. This kid is good, but to take him in the third round is interesting when you're coming from a school like UConn.
In the American Conference, that's so true. Yeah.
I am a fan of the Darnay Holmes pick in the fourth round. I think that might have been an underrated pick there. So I'm hoping he'll help out because I think the reason the Giants looked at safeties, cornerbacks, I think they were more than unimpressed with the way DeAndre Baker panned out. And that's what they're trying to do here is potentially try to fix that mistake. Because I was not a fan of DeAndre Baker at the time either, and he showed it this season.
But he's also young, though. But DeAndre Baker is also extremely young, and
there's
and absolutely, and there's also a humongous upside with Baker as well. And that's the thing is that I've seen a lot of people they've trashed on Baker, and really by rights, it just looks like a lot of he's having trouble, growing into an NFL player or blossoming into an NFL player. It's similar to like how Eli Apple was absolutely atrocious towards the latter part of his career in the Meadowlands. But then, and I'm not going to say he was great in New Orleans, but he was definitely a little bit better. But it's a process. Is he a bust? Is he a first round bust? Yeah, I'd say so. But I mean, Baker, he still has time. I just think that, you as a Giant fan and a lot of other people as well have to, especially because the Giants are going to be going through years and years of a rebuild. This is not, and until Gettleman is gone and until he, stops resending himself emails while trying to, make a draft pick, I think that the Giants are going to need a lot more help than just Andrew Thomas and the players that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a long way to go here, but the main important thing is while we continue this rebuild is to always look better the following game.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing when you're in for another lost season is just to look better each and every game, every play, every quarter, slow progression.
Right. No, and you know what? And that actually is probably the perfect thing because, and again, another segue, DeLuca 2 for 2 on segues because I think the biggest surprise of the first round was CeeDee Lamb being chosen by the Cowboys and him falling. And why? Because John Gruden and Mike Mayock decided to take Henry Ruggs at 12. Before we get to the aforementioned Ruggs from Alabama, let's talk about OKC's Oklahoma's CeeDee Lamb to the Cowboys. I mean, you speak about DeAndre Baker, and now you have Amari Cooper on one side, CeeDee Lamb on the other side. I mean, it's tough, and I mean, me as an Eagles fan, I know that's going to put a lot of pressure on our secondary, who is which is going through an absolute rebuild and has been terrible since Asante Samuel and Brian Dawkins. But I want to hear more of what you guys think about the Cowboys pick in the first round.
I mean, I thought the Cowboys had one of the best drafts of any team, being able to grab possibly the best wide receiver at that point in the draft. They never dreamed they were going to have an opportunity to even take CeeDee Lamb. A lot of people were clamoring that they should be getting a corner there. Instead of reaching for a corner that probably wouldn't have had a first-round grade, they take the best player available. Their offense is going to be absolutely lethal now with another fantastic wide receiver. And then they were able to rebound and grab a solid corner in the second round. So they were able to recoup what they should have been going for in the first place and make it up for in the second. They really made a phenomenal move there. I think they're really looking forward to being the best team in this division this year. I mean, the Eagles are a good team. Washington's improving. We have to see how the Giants' new coaching staff gets them going. But I think Dallas firmly believes they're going to be the best team, and they were able to draft a want more than a need to fortify a strength instead of trying to solve weaknesses that they may have created from free agency. But their offense should be outstanding. Their defense is going to have trouble, but that's a move that's going to pay off for sure.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and especially after losing Byron Jones as well to the Miami Dolphins, I think there was no doubt in my mind that you have to recoup in the secondary. You have to recoup that cornerback spot. I think just by looking at Dallas's draft, and I know the way, Rob, you get, I know some of those facial expressions that that you have when things go right for the other team and it's really bad for yours. And I pictured you in my head when I saw CeeDee Lamb, and I think you and I were texting about it, and just to see how Jerry Jones makes these picks on a $250 million yacht that looks like a Navy submarine. It's absolutely surreal to see what he can still do. He didn't need anyone's help. He did it all on his own, and it was almost like a real life fantasy football draft this year for most teams. Tyler, would you like to add anything on anything here in the draft? Because it looks as if that I feel like I've been leaving you out.
I mean, I feel as if the whole CeeDee Lamb pick, although it is a great pick for the Cowboys, it kind of is gonna force their hand a little bit as far as it comes to Dak Prescott. They put a little bit more leverage in his hand, where now they give him another weapon, kind of puts the ball in his court more to be like, now you really got to pay me, otherwise you're not going to have anybody to throw to him at all, and he's going to be useless. So it's that pick to me is kind of like a double-edged sword, because it could be really great as long as they kind of give in to Dak Prescott's demands, no questions asked. But if they're not willing to give him the $40 million that he's 100% not worth, it's definitely going to be interested to see how they work around that one.
I'd have to agree. I'd have to agree there. And I know that this is a show where we should be debating each other, but actually all four of us have been right on the same wavelength.
Well, hold on.
Yeah,
that could work the other way, couldn't it?
I was just going to say, that's my counterpoint. This is going to put pressure on Dak, because this guy
can't agree with me and then say you're going to counter it.
I didn't say I was agreeing.
Not you.
Joe's the one who agreed here. I think this puts pressure on Dak because he's given yet another weapon. Meanwhile, every passing game, he's criticized for not being that good, rightfully so, because he really isn't that accurate. The only reason he looks somewhat good is because he's got guys that can catch literally anything.
Yeah, I think this basically is going to net itself out, because you could say both ways. You both made the arguments for either side claiming leverage here. But in reality's sake, I think it might actually lean towards being better for Jerry Jones, because couldn't he just trade Dak Prescott and put even a mediocre quarterback in there, and they would put up some great line, great weapons, a great running game? You don't need a superstar quarterback. So Jerry could definitely be like, hey, play hardball. I'll trade you next offseason. We only have really one more year of true control over you. We'll move on. We'll draft somebody safe or sign a safe free agent or play the position a little cheaper than other teams. We have a supporting staff here that's not going to make a difference. So I think I think he's going to end up signing long-term either way. They're going to somehow hash out this number eventually. But I think Jerry's got something here where he's built such an unbelievable offensive ecosystem and you add Mike McCarthy now, who's a good offensive mind on top of all this, that I think it gives the leverage to the Cowboys to be able to say, listen, we could plug anyone in here. It's going to work one way or the other.
Yeah, and on top of it too, you can really, if you look at some of the free agent quarterbacks now, and it's, and I'm not saying that you could plug in a Cam Newton, you could plug in
Jameis,
right, or exactly, or Jameis Winston
fun.
or something like that, right? Exactly. But you know what though, you really probably can plug in like a Cam Newton, get him for much cheaper than Dak Prescott. And I think you probably have just as much, if not a little more success with Cam if he were to stay healthy. That's obviously the problem. Would you have to pay $40 million for him? No, but you'd also be able to surround him with insane amounts of weapons. Nick, you brought up this point a few times actually when in the beginning of this series of this show, And we've spoken about when it was just you and I about in the beginning of the careers of Russell Wilson and how the Seahawks were able to build. Also, same thing with the Panthers too. In the beginning of Cam Newton's tenure, where these teams are able to build around these rookie quarterbacks, and they are able to bring them to the promised land. Obviously, 2 out of 3 times, or 1 out of 3 times, or well, we know exactly how it went with Seattle the one time, but they were there. They were there, and when you pay these quarterbacks $40 million, we brought this up with when it was with actually who did we bring that up with, Nick? Or what team were we thinking about?
Probably Kansas City, because
right. Yes.
So they're gonna have to make some choices going forward.
Right. Yes. And that's exactly the conversation that we had in this exact room that I'm in, and it's crazy because you pay someone $40 million when the cap is, I think it's 200 something million, or just shy of 200 million. And that takes a humongous chunk, Nick being the math guy. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's, well, whatever it is,
it's 200, it's 20%.
Okay, great.
20%.
Fantastic. So it takes 20% out of your cap, and then you have that much less room to sign someone else. So I have to agree with not gonna lie. Excuse me. I think I agree with both of you, honestly. There's
points both ways. There's 2 ways to look at it.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Both teams can argue what they got. But I think in-game wise, this might put more pressure on Dak because he's losing excuses. This offense is loaded. They need to be a top 5 offense this season.
The only excuse he has left is if he tells everybody outright that he sucks, because he does.
Well, yeah, that is true. That I think, again, we can all agree with, but there really is no more excuse. And as I did say, if Jerry Jones is able to sign someone of, again, a mediocre QB who could bring them to the promised land with all of these weapons, then you may have to rethink what is it really necessary for a $40 million quarterback? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Makes you wonder, though, Joe, about whether or not they should have gone with a fail-safe option in the draft these past 3 days, just in case it didn't work out. Also, kind of like what your Birds did.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's Rob. We'll get there in a second, but before we get to the Eagles, because that's a whole nother topic. Don't forget, for those that are looking for Golden Stick Wiffle Ball with John Denaro and Tyler Adelle, that will be on at 8:00, followed by WWE Talk with Tyler Adelle and Al Carl around 8:15, 8:30 ish. So please stick around here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks for that segment. But our NFL Draft Recap special show here, April 25th between 7 and 9. Cannot thank all of you enough. Cannot thank Rob DeLuca for being here with us. It's really a lot of fun so far. We're going to get a little more heated conversations in just a few minutes. But the Raiders, they took Henry Ruggs at number 12. Henry Ruggs, if I'm not mistaken, out of the three wide receivers that Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and CeeDee Lamb, I believe he was number 2 or 3. A little high for Ruggs at 12. I thought it was going to be either CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy that was going to go to Las Vegas.
I mean, it comes down to what trait of a receiver you wanted. Henry Ruggs is a pure burner. He's the fastest one in the draft. This is the kind of thing the Raiders have been enamored with for a long time now. I texted one of my friends that this has got to be the ghost of Al Davis making this pick. I'm obsessed with speed, and this is exactly what hand that plays into. So I wasn't all that surprised that the Raiders wanted speed. So it's really about what you wanted. Jerry Jeudy was one of the tactician, route runner, perfect, pristine type of receiver in that instance. CeeDee Lamb was best after the catch, one of those guys who can catch it and make big plays after the ball got in his hands. And Ruggs was the burner. So in reality, probably, yeah, Judy and Lamb were the top two, and Ruggs was either third or fourth, depending on your Justin Jefferson ranking. I had some people that had Ruggs fourth behind Jefferson. So it's about what you wanted. Justin Jefferson's a slot guy. So the Raiders obviously wanted a burner, so they went here. I didn't think it was a good fit with their offense, though. That's where I was confused, because you have Tyrell Williams, who's in that mold,
Right.
the type of burner. I thought a CeeDee Lamb or a Jerry Judy would have fit as a better complement there, but this is the Raiders we're talking about. There's a reason that they struggle a lot with these kind of things year in and year out. So we'll see. And Derek Carr has shown he's a good deep ball thrower, so this might be a good thing to have two guys on the outside who can both really run. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But it comes down to what kind of receiver you were looking for, and this is obviously what the Raiders wanted. So can't fault them if it works out.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing, though, and that's the big if factor, is it going to work out? Rob, Tyler, do you guys think it works out? Is it too early to tell? Does it fit the I have to get used to this. Las Vegas. Does it fit with the Vegas Raiders mold and the John Gruden mold?
Is one of those picks where it's probably going to be it's going to be early to tell, because you don't know what Derek Carr is going to bring you this season.
Who knows if he could even be there? That's
the thing, is like, if he gets hit with a butterfly, he's going to just shatter. So you got to, keeping him healthy is obviously the most important thing going into whatever training camp is going to turn into this season. But I think the pick was the right pick for the system that the Raiders like to play. Although he was obviously he's out talented by guys like Jerry Judy and CeeDee Lamb. It's one of those picks where it's either going to be really good for the Raiders or it's going to be a dumpster fire. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, it doesn't even come down to. It's not even going to be Ruggs' fault. It's going to be on Derek Carr whether or not he's even healthy enough to play.
Yeah. And the sad part is that you say that he, if he gets hit by a butterfly, he's out. Well, funny story. They got QB number 2, Marcus Mariota, who is just as capable of getting hurt by that same butterfly within one little poke. Rob, I want to hear your thoughts about Las Vegas.
You mean, well, my thoughts about Las Vegas could go on beyond many things, but the Henry Ruggs pick, I think it's interesting, but yeah, Ruggs was not supposed to be the first receiver taken, but that's how that went with the Raiders, and it does come down to Derek Carr, honestly, because that's their. That's been their agenda. Yeah. That's been their guy. This is like this is who we're going with. We paid him this money. He's got it.
Just really quickly piggybacking off of that, if you look at the Raiders draft this year, they didn't even draft a quarterback like they're entertaining replacing this guy anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I didn't think so. Yeah, I watched almost all 3 days coverage of this, but I think
I'm not surprised that they didn't pick one, but at the same time, it's like. The guy can't stay healthy. It's going to take one blindside hit.
There are a couple fail-safe options out there that the Raiders could have taken but they chose not to. They think he's going to somehow get these guys back into the promised land. And,
well, it's going to take a lot of time. I mean, don't get me wrong. They did fantastic last year when they were only projected to go. I think it was like, I don't know, 2-14, maybe. They were supposed to be extremely atrocious, and they defied all expectations. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 6-10 or 7-9 that they went, and that was seriously something good. And I don't think it was a flash in the pan either. I think that they are closer than a lot of people expect, but it's just these picks like Henry Ruggs. Yeah, you're right, Nick. It's the ghost of Al Davis. These speedy receivers that they've gotten over the past, I don't know how many years it's been, ever since he's been gone. Mark has basically, or Al's been channeling his son. I don't know what the deal is, but it's just the Raider way. And John Gruden knows all about it. So I guess it's okay. We'll see.
One thing-
I think it's too early to tell.
It's definitely too early to tell. One thing I was just thinking of while you guys were talking is John Gruden really loves the running back they drafted, Josh Jacobs, and his ability to pound the rock. This may play into that he's really trying to stretch the field with his receivers and give Jacobs a lot of room to run inside. He might be playing an old school style here where he wants his receivers to stretch the field, keep those safeties deep, and keep his box light for his power running back to go and just do his thing. Because you also have Darren Waller who can stretch the field. They have a very, very deep set of receivers and tight ends there to stretch the field out. It could really open up a hole for the running back that he's fallen in love with. So that might be part of this, is that he really wants to open up that box and not allow teams to stack up against his most potent offensive weapon, to be honest.
Right. And in addition to Darren Waller too, I also did forget about someone who made an impact in Hard Knocks last year on HBO. But also Hunter Renfrow was someone big as well. And now really, let's think about it. On paper, the Raiders have 4 decent wide receivers: Henry Ruggs, Tyrell Williams, Hunter Renfrow, tight end Darren Waller. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the drum roll, please, Nelson Aguilar to a 1-year prove-it deal of $887,500. But again, he could prove himself, and he could be, I don't want to say vintage Aguilar, which is, drop every single ball that comes in sight. But you
also
have
drafted 2 other receivers in the 3rd round. So
right.
We have a ton of names there.
Yeah,
you could say Lynn Bowden is going to be a receiver or a running back. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife offensive weapon, but they stocked up on speed offensively. This was not just a Henry Ruggs thing. They went all out for improving that receiving core with speed. So they're obviously trying to get a type of receiver similar to what the Eagles did in their draft. So we're going to see how that pays out for those teams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we get to the Eagles, I do want to jump into just actually the 23rd pick of the draft this year was the Minnesota Vikings. And I want to say that I love the pick because, I mean, who wouldn't take Justin Jefferson if it, landed in your lap? Not the Eagles. But Minnesota, I think they replaced Stephon Diggs with someone that will most likely be their number 1. Adam Thielen, I think, will always be that number 2. Can he be that number 1? I think he needs someone next to him or on the other side of the field that could potentially get the attention off of him. But I think for the first few years, it's going to be all the attention on Adam Thielen. But I think Minnesota did really well in drafting the successor to the aforementioned Diggs.
Well, one thing I want to say about that is I don't know for sure if Thielen can handle being a number 1 by himself, but what's concerning about the fit with Justin Jefferson is that Adam Thielen's done his best work out of the slot too, and that's where Justin Jefferson is projected to be. So you have 2 guys who aren't really known as outside receivers. We don't know who's truly going to play on the outside for Minnesota. We have to see how they make those pieces fit. You can't have 2 slot receivers as your top guys. That doesn't work. You need to be able to stretch the field horizontally as well as vertically. So we're going to see how they go with this. We know they're going to try and lean on Dalvin Cook in the running game and then have the play action pass off of that. That was their bread and butter last year. And Jefferson's a great wide receiver. They're going to be able to make this work. So is Thielen. It's just a matter of where they're going to fit and how they're going to maximize the talents of both of these guys. But you're right. They got a receiver to replace Diggs, but he's very different type. This is not an outside receiver who's going to burn you deep over and over again. This is more of an inside guy who's going to beat you with good route running, great hands. He had over 100 catches for LSU last year in an offense that was absolutely ridiculous. So he's a guy that's going to dominate inside and get a lot of catches, volume targets. That's never really what Diggs was. He was more of a deep guy who'd catch a couple of balls, but for big yardage and stretch the field. So we're going to see how this works out.
You 2 want to add anything in there before I want to just add one thing and piggyback off of Nick's comment?
I would say that Justin Jefferson is a great pick by the Vikings, no less. But let's be real, he wasn't supposed to be available at that point. It's as simple as that. The Eagles decided to reach and go for Rigor from TCU, who's, hey, not a bad pick, but easily a big reach. He wasn't supposed to be even mentioned until round 2. But the Eagles think this could be someone special. So other than that, I think Adam Thielen is going to be fine because a lot of people kind of considered him to be the number one anyway. Like, if you ask some people, they thought he was number one to begin with, even this past season. So it's tough to say.
Right.
Diggs even thought that at times. He got very mad about Thielen getting targets when Diggs wasn't. So, but I think it just came down to who they were. Diggs was more of a vertical guy, and Thielen was more of a possession guy. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, and in addition to what Nick was saying, I think that the biggest thing here is that Justin Jefferson fell into the lap of the Vikings. And yes, I understand that it is obviously a first round pick. You do not want to waste it on any random person. For example, like the Eagles did in 2013, where they drafted a firefighter in Danny Watkins, who lasted in the league for a whole wrist seconds. Now, you know, I think about this, and Justin Jefferson is not that type of player. Obviously, Nick said it, over 100 catches with LSU, and with Joe Burrow being that quarterback, I think with Kirk Cousins is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think we lost Tyler, technical difficulty there, but we'll get him back in just a few moments. But additionally, also, the Vikings also signed Tajay Sharp as well. And I'm not saying that he's fantastic either, but he's also a one-year prove-it deal guy who could potentially be, I would say, like
he's kind of a Diggs mold, like obviously very light.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that could play outside and stretch the field a little bit. Even if he's not getting a bunch of targets, he's not that good, but he fits more of a replacement for Diggs just positionally.
And he could also be a decoy as well to the two in Thielen and Justin Jefferson as well. So I'm sorry I'm sorry. This has to be said here on the air with
Oh my God.
I can't. Tyler has a cat, and the cat is trying to destroy the Eastern Observer property. So expect a lawsuit to Tyler's cat in just a few moments from the Blackjack Media Networks. Okay, so that had to be said. But all serious, all joking aside, though, Nick, do you think also with Dalvin Cook being obviously a predominant figure in Mike Zimmer's offense, the way you spoke about Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs to potentially open the door for Josh Jacobs to for him to have the field, to basically give him the keys of the offense. Could we see that with Dalvin Cook?
Well, it could be a problem if they don't get the vertical stretching of the field. Teams are going to be able to pull their safeties down a little more because Thielen and Jefferson aren't going to be as prominent of beat you over the top guys. This could make things harder for Dalvin Cook, who may have to rely more on catching the ball in space to get more room, because the box could be a little heavier against the Vikings this year. But we also have to see, I forgot that Kevin Stefanski is gone. He was their offensive coordinator last season. He's the head coach of the Browns now. They're going to have a new offense in there. We're going to have to see if they run things the same way. But Kirk Cousins has always been better in a play action based offense. So they're going to have to find a way to have an effective running game, because that's how you open things up for Kirk Cousins to be at his best. He's not a type of quarterback who's good enough to go full drop back the whole game and pick you apart. He needs a competent running game. He needs the play action game to be able to be successful. So the Vikings have to find a way to stretch the field. They have to find a way to get Dalvin Cook to be able to run effectively to be able to make this work.
Yeah, there's going to be, I personally think, some problems in Minnesota, I don't want to say growing pains, but I think now with, you said it, with Kevin Stefanski being gone, and that the offensive coordinator or the offensive plays, the play calling and all of that stuff, now moved on just about, about 200-300 miles east into Cleveland. I think we're going to see a couple of losing games in the first time in the first few tries of the 2020 NFL season, if and when it goes on. We'll see. I think that there's going to be some problems. But additionally, Nick and Rob and Tyler, now that Tyler is back, and thankfully he has paid the lawsuit or the everything with his cat and trying to destroy some of our Eastern Observer equipment. But thank you to the cat for not fully destroying everything. let's look at San Francisco. And the reason why I bring up San Francisco is because Nick speaks about his boy. Do you like that, or you like that, or Kirk Cousins? And for Rob that doesn't really know, we had a running joke many years ago, back where Nick and I used to work, and he was not really a Kirk Cousins fan, but he wanted to just be that outsider guy and, be that
We
guy.
weren't Kirk Cousins fans either. He played against us for like 7 years.
I'm a Michigan State fan. That's where Kirk Cousins went to school. So I always had an affinity for him. But when we worked at Modell's, we had you as an Eagles fan. We had someone who was a Cowboys fan and someone else who was a Giants fan. So naturally, I took the Redskins just to be against everybody. It turned out that's the year they ended up winning the division and getting smacked by the Packers. But it was still funny nonetheless. I was on the Kirk Cousins train because I like Michigan State. So that's really where it came from. And it just doubled down on the fact that you guys all hated that one team. So I had to be the difference person there.
Right.
Yeah,
and
I always like Kirk.
and you know what? And because of you, of your love for Michigan State and everything along those lines, there was actually one person now on the San Francisco 49ers that it looked as if did not want to play with Kirk Cousins, or so says the media. We do not know. But Minnesota had, and when I say had, there was a trade in place for left tackle Trent Williams from the Washington Redskins that he was supposed to be Kirk Cousins' left tackle. Now, we don't know what was going on there. We have no idea what was going on behind closed doors when the two were in Washington. But I don't want to say that maybe something happened then where we could see something now, or maybe he saw something that he doesn't think that this team could be good long-term. So he goes to the reigning NFC champions and for a lot less as well. I think that it was a humongous win for Washington, and I don't know. And on top of it, Joe Staley retired following this trade, which really, again, kudos to Joe Staley because he's one of the best left tackles ever. And he unfortunately does not have a Super Bowl ring. But what do we think? Let's put it all together here. Do we think that Trent Williams had a problem playing with Kirk Cousins, or did he have a problem maybe with the Minnesota mold?
I think it was more an affinity for Kyle Shanahan, his prior offensive coordinator. I think that's really where it came from. I don't think he has a problem with Kirk Cousins. I think he understood that San Fran's the better team. He loves Kyle Shanahan, the way he runs his offense. He's not going to have to really learn all that much of a new scheme. He knows this already. He's going to be able to drop in on an elite team, a Super Bowl contending team, a clear path to starting. The guy in front of him just retired. It's a very clean swap. But what surprised me most is that he apparently had an extension offer from Minnesota and would have gotten paid immediately and bypassed that for San Francisco, who's just going to rework his contract and then work on an extension later. So that's shocking to me. So you may be right. Maybe there was something about Minnesota or Kirk Cousins that he didn't like, but I'm going to lean towards the positive end of this and say he loved Kyle Shanahan. He liked the fact their team was better, closer to a Super Bowl, an easy spot to jump into and an easy transition for him.
Now, even though, and I want to get to Rob and Tyler's thoughts about this, I also think that, and obviously a left tackle doesn't really have a lot of, fandom or fanism or anything along those lines. But in San Francisco, Joe Staley was loved, similar to Joe Thomas when he was in Cleveland. He was the beloved figure in Cleveland, the one that was, good. Everyone else was terrible. He was the one positive piece in Cleveland. Looking back with Staley during the Chip Kelly year following, or years plural, following Super Bowl 48. They completely stripped down everything in San Francisco, and he was the one that was still there. And now following 14 years of service, he's now gone. So Trent Williams has humongous shoes to fill in the Bay Area. There's no doubt about it. I think he can do it, but you're right, Nick. I think the puzzling thing to me was the contract extension was not signed. There was nothing there. And yes, it can be mentioned later. It can be doing whatever. But I think that price that they got him for, I think it was a 5th round pick and a 3rd round pick for next year, or a 5th in 2020 and 2021 a 3rd.
Right.
Okay, so I did get that right.
Yeah.
Good. Thank goodness, because I've been botching things, and Nick knows that, and he's got
For
them
your
all on
entire
tape.
life. We get it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, Nick knows. So it's puzzling, but at the same time, when you're going to a Super Bowl contending team to solidify an offensive line, which obviously following Joe Staley's retirement, and you have someone of Trent Williams' caliber that comes in to replace him, I think you're doing a pretty good job. And Trent Williams wanted to be, at one point, we thought he wanted to be paid, but then we realized he just wanted to be out of a toxic Washington locker room, clubhouse, whatever we want to call it.
Ownership.
Yeah, exactly. Ownership with Dan Snyder. It was not really good. I want to hear from the bottom two, Rob and Tyler. And when I say bottom two, I mean you got the two on the bottom of my screen here.
Forward it that way.
Now we got you two. Yeah. I got Nick to my left, Rob. It's like Hollywood Squares here.
Wow.
I mean, hey, we're the Giants fans. That's how we always get treated, is it not?
I don't feel like talking now.
No, I mean, hey, who wouldn't want to get out of Washington? I mean, just everything about the Redskins, the city, just all of it. I don't blame them, but no, in all seriousness, those are some big shoes to fill. Kyle Staley is essentially a San Francisco icon. Like you've got some big shoes to fill, and I wish him luck. But at the end of the day, you really have to, like, out of the gate, be something special. Otherwise, you're gonna get torn apart for being someone who's replacing a legend and not fulfilling their legacy.
Yeah. And also, I'm sorry, and the way actually Tyler's looking up, it actually looks perfect because he's looking up directly at me. And the fans on YouTube can obviously, see that. Now, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said it. If he also has not played in 2 years either. So we're going to see rust. We're also going to see the possibility of booze. San Francisco is not an easy place to play. You have tough media as well, but you also have a city that is no strangers to Super Bowl championships. I don't know, Steve Young, Joe Montana. You have a team that is craving for another Super Bowl title, to have number 6 on their resume. And I don't want to say that Trent Williams is that piece, but you have to realize the offensive line is a humongous part of any football team. And I think also with now Matt Breida being traded away, Raheem Mostert they're going to look for him to build off of a phenomenal, for what some think is a flash in the pan type year. They think that he could be good. You also have Tevin Coleman. And don't forget, we have not forgotten, well, I know some people have, but I haven't, Jerick McKinnon, who blew out his ACL twice. So he's also going to be back. So there was a logjam at running back. So now you have that hole to open now with Joe Staley gone and Trent Williams coming in. Tyler, let's talk about San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of Nick a little bit, I think I don't think there was anything personal in any decision made as far as to where he was going to go. I just think, obviously, you realize that San Francisco is going to clearly be a little bit of a better fit. He's got, obviously, a little more of an opportunity to win. But, yeah, no, the pressure that comes with having to play in the shadow of Joe Staley, or play in his footsteps, rather. He's probably, regardless of how well he plays or how poor he plays, he's probably not going to get the warmest reception right away. Because it's just for every 10 plays he makes, if 9 of them are good and 1 of them are bad, they're all going to focus on the one bad play. That's just the nature of how it is, especially for a fan base that was so he was basically like the Jets version of Nick Mangold.
Right.
It was, they
Shaw Ferguson.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in regards of, like, piggybacking off what I said a couple of weeks ago, how many people you see walking around in offensive lineman jerseys and T-shirts. You know what I mean? It was for the longest time Mangold, Joe Thomas, and Joe Staley.
Right.
So it's obviously fans are going to understand that Joe Staley thought his body had been through enough, and he just wanted to call it quits while he could still probably, I would say, live I don't want to say halfway normal life, but still be able to do things while he can walk without his knees clicking.
It's true.
But yeah, I'm sure he knows what he's walking into. I'm sure he's aware of the situation he's going to be under and the extreme criticism he'll be under by the fans. But I more than confident in the fact he'll be able to handle his own there.
Moving forward, in the NFL draft during the first round, the Packers traded up with a surprise pick in Jordan Love. We figure, and let's not forget, for those that do not know, Jordan Love, a quarterback, and a lot of people thought, well, could Aaron Rodgers' time be slowly running out in Green Bay? Not so fast. I think that this honestly was a really good trade, and I think that the pick was decent as well. Any disagreeers? Hi, let's hear you.
Yeah.
I mean, first off, you talked about Aaron Rodgers being out. He can't leave for 2 more years. He would have an unbelievable amount of dead money on their cap if they tried to move on from him for the next 2 seasons. So you're going to have a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract burn 2 years of his deal, which is when he's at his maximum value, sitting on the bench waiting for Rodgers. And even then, Rodgers could still be a star, and you don't want to move on from him. You don't know when Rodgers' magic is going to run out. You didn't know when Brett Favre was going to. You kicked him out of town. It worked out. Listen, if Jordan Love becomes a great quarterback, this all becomes moot. But the decision to do it this year as opposed to next year when you could give the kid 1 year to sit behind Rodgers and then maybe think about it, to me was bizarre, especially when you needed wide receivers in the worst way, which leads me to their second round, which actually annoyed me more. The first one could actually work out. Then you go in the second round, you draft a running back. Aaron Jones doesn't get enough carries as it is. You have Williams behind him, who's a good pass catcher and a good complimentary back. So what are you doing drafting another running back? There are so many great wide receivers, and you're passing on another one? Packers fans are furious for good reason. They came out of this draft and didn't get any weapons for Aaron Rodgers. When last year you saw Devontae Adams get hurt, and he's throwing at nobodies that no one's ever heard of. It's barren out there. It's bizarre. I don't get it. Then they draft a tight end. People thought Jay Sternberger was going to step in this year after being drafted last year as a tight end. So now they have another tight end. We don't know how that's going to work out. Very bizarre decision-making. But really, if Jordan Love pans out and ends up the next great Packer quarterback, they'll forgive it. But for right now, this is a bizarre decision when you had a major, major other need in a very receiver-rich draft. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Do
it's
you
a
go
long-term play when you could have used short-term help?
But do you go the free agency route? And that's not really what the Packers do, is free agency route, because they are always known to draft their players. And just the last couple of years, they signed a whole bunch of defensive free agents, and it all paid out. It all panned out for them because they made it to the NFC Championship, and they obviously got clobbered in San Francisco last year, but still made it there. They were only to the promised land once, won it in Super Bowl 45 against the Steelers in AT&T Stadium. What about you two on the bottom here?
I gotta agree. I mean, I think the Packers had the worst draft in the NFL. I thought that was absolutely absurd what I watched in the first 2 rounds from them. Even the first 3 rounds. Like there are Packers fans out there tweeting like, yeah, just 2 more 7th round picks and we will officially have had the worst draft in the history of the NFL. They are furious. And here's the thing. If it doesn't slowly mean the transition away from Aaron Rodgers, what was the point of any of it then? Aaron Rodgers easily is the quarterback for the next 2 years, regardless of how he plays. He could throw 50 interceptions by week 7. He's still the guy for the next 2 years. But I just don't understand. This draft had historical depth in almost every position. Like, any team that needed something could get what they needed without any worry, which is, I think, probably why we saw so few trades that actually had any, relevance. But they come up and do this. It's mind-boggling to what the Green Bay Packers are trying to do. It's like it showed they have no direction. Do they have any intentions of winning the next 2 years, or what? Like
I
leaves
think
it in a question.
I think, and this is actually going to be the last topic before we head over to Golden State Wiffle Ball. But I do want to say this before we do get to Tyler's thoughts about Green Bay. If they are to maybe sign some wide receivers following this draft, there are plenty of wide receivers that are out there. There are plenty of running backs out there. Nick, I agreed with you when I did see that second round running back that was drafted by them. You have Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams right there. You have a perfect 1-2 punch. What are you doing there? That's the part where, okay, well, wide receivers is humongous for them because they also lost Geronimo Allison. So, and he was their number 2. And again, they're not really, they don't have any wide receiver depth because Marquez Valdez-Scantling, there we go, I got the name right, was their number 3, and now he's their number 2. And there is a humongous dip from Devontae Adams, and then you go all the way down to Scantling. Unless you sign somebody, then what I said earlier about Jordan Love's pick being fantastic, I have to agree with the two of you. It was terrible, but it will be justified if you can sign someone and help Aaron Rodgers for now. Do you want to win now or do you want to win later? What exactly do you want to do, Tyler? Let's hear it.
So the new relationship of A-Rod and J-Lo is a weird one. It's picking him is not as crazy as it seems. If you think of the Packers' track record on how they draft their quarterbacks and how they develop their quarterbacks, he's going to sit on the bench for a few years.
It takes time for sure.
So, but not even that, not even taking time in general. I mean, obviously, every year the quarterback is usually on the field week 1 from the draft, but the Packers have a very particular way of running their quarterback system. Aaron Rodgers, you think back, he was drafted in 2005. And Brett Favre didn't leave for, I believe, 3 full years after that. So to see that, going back off what you guys are saying, where Aaron Rodgers has 2, potentially a 3rd year in him to play, it's not too far-fetched that they would go looking for their guy now. I understand that this was a very risky time to do it. But it's one of those things where the Packers, look, they're not idiots. They know what they're doing. They know how to draft. I don't think that they potentially see somebody in the next draft class or so that really sticks out to them yet. And I know it's early to say something like that, but I think if we're all talking in agreement, I think it'll be an agreement here that if you don't think that these front offices and coaches and scouts are looking at next year's draft class in July and August, you're insane. But it's hard for me to knock the trade because the last time they did this, it was a home run for them. So I think
yes.
It's one of those things where it's hard to knock it before he's like, look, don't get me wrong. 3 years if this comes in and he sucks, then yeah, obviously the risk was a horrible bust. They could have potentially traded in a Super Bowl to get this kid, and he was terrible. But unfortunately, in professional sports, that's the risk you're taking.
And you know what? And just to conclude this one little topic before we do head over to Wiffle Ball, because I do see John Denaro here in the waiting room. The Packers actually drafted in the 2005 draft, for all those that are watching right now. Again, cannot thank you enough for watching. 2005, round number 1, pick number 24, sat out for 3 years behind Brett Favre. And then on October 31st, 2008, Rodgers would sign a 6-year deal worth $65 million until the 2014 season. Could we see the same exact type of deal for Jordan Love? Could it be exactly what Tyler said? And I personally think it's going to be the next Packer, or it's going to be the future. I don't know. I'm in between with Nick and Tyler here, where Are you planning for now? Are you trying to win now? Are you trying to win in the future? Or are you in the middle? Because that seems to me like it doesn't, like, are you satisfied with an NFC championship clobbering? You're not, I don't think just by looking at this that you can say that, well, okay, we're ready to draft a quarterback because, well, we have all of those needs, or we fulfilled all of those needs.
Well, to me, it just tells me that the Packers are confident in what they have. They know it can work.
But the problem is, though, and this is my problem, is that, yeah, they're confident in what they have, but it doesn't show on the scoreboard. That's the problem that I have here. So I like the pick, but you have to now go out and address the needs that you did not address. That's the problem that I have here. So I see a little bit of 2005, 15 years later. John, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we will get back to the NFL draft in roughly about 25 minutes. John DeNaro from Golden Stick Wiffle Ball. This is our current partnership between the Eastern Observer and also the Golden Stick Wiffle Ball League. We will get to John DeNaro in just a second here. It looks like his camera is off. Let's make sure that, let's see. Let's get him on here.
Welcome to the top, Rob.
There we go. Looks like he is connecting to audio. So let's see. All right. Well, while we do wait for him, let's keep it moving. Oh, all right. He is here. He is here. John DeNaro is here. Let us rename him for those here. And very good. All righty. So, John DeNaro, welcome to the Primetime Rundown.
All right, we're getting headphones. You got us now? Well, we can't hear you.
All right. Well, it looks as if that we cannot hear him, and it looks as if that on my side of things, there is no option for microphone. Don't know just yet, but in the meantime, Tyler will let me know if I have to do anything on my end. While we wait, Rob, cannot thank you enough for being with us here this evening. Here it is Saturday, 8:07 p.m. on the East Coast, alongside my guys, Nick Partain, Tyler Adelle. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Again, cannot thank you all enough for being here with us. Nick will be getting a Primetime Rundown background sooner than later. I hope that the shipment from India gets here sooner than later. I don't know when. And yes, it is coming from India. So let us see. Maybe we can get him now. And let's see what we have here. We're trying to get him in.
Oh, JD is still muted. Oh, and he's done.
Uh-oh, what happened? Where did he go?
I will say gone. It is an honor to be moved up to the top to move into the top part of the screen. Total honor to be a part of it. But honestly, I love coming on to your shows, Joey, Nick, Tyler. Thanks for having me. It's just always great.
Wasn't my choice. If it makes you feel better.
I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to take that. Actually, I'm not actually sure.
I don't know.
I take that.
I don't know. I don't know what happened with John DeNaro, but he is not here. Tyler, if you can ask him where he is, we'd love to get the wiffle ball part started.
So yeah, I'm gonna step to the side and see if I can work out the technicalities with him.
All right, very cool. So as he does that, I do want to speak about the Philadelphia Eagles now, and because I have some let's call it sanity left. While we wait for this to go on, I do have to say, when I was told that, because I was actually in an interview last night on the Zoom interview series with FA Euro's Marco Balsamo last night. For those that did not watch, please take a peek on YouTube and our the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series channel. Rob texted me that Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma, the quarterback, was drafted by the Eagles in round number 2, pick number 53. I almost had an aneurysm, and to try and figure out the logic behind it, the only thing that I can think of, I have two possibilities that are in my head right now. It would have to be on that there is some sort of, I want to say, insurance for Carson Wentz, because this is year number 4 that he's been in the league, and 3 out of the last 4 years, he's been hurt. And he's ended the season with either a concussion, a broken back, and also a torn ACL. So with Josh McCown being 40 years old, he tore his hamstring during the game against Seattle in the excuse me, in the NFC wildcard game. I guess you could have some durability. That would be number one. You have some, some experience in the locker room, with Carson Wentz being now, I guess, the veteran. Nate Sudfeld is absolute trash. So I guess you have someone that could come in. And did I remove him? Tyler's asking me. No, I did not remove him. So I don't know where he is. I know Tyler can hear that from here. So I can't text back right now, but I did not remove John. So John actually just disappeared on my end. I don't know if he might have hit the button or whatnot. So again, with Jalen Hurts, I don't know what the deal is. Or again, following up with my point, it could be a Taysom Hill type thing if maybe your wide receivers don't pan out, because Justin Jefferson was supposed to be on the team. Well, you have Greg Ward as your slot guy. Justin Jefferson is your tall slot guy. He's now in Minnesota. You took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. Again, not as bad as Danny Watkins, the 29-year-old firefighter in 2013, but it's still kind of questionable. You come back, you take 3 wide receivers, you trade for Marquise Goodwin, which Rob actually told me today while I was at a funeral. And additionally, he came back, and I thought it was pretty decent. But I think that the biggest question mark in my head is that how does management think Carson Wentz is going to be throughout this guaranteed $107 million contract for the next 4 years? I want to hear the two of you while Tyler gets the technicalities fixed up here. Let's hear it from the both of you.
So one thing you didn't mention about Jalen Hurts is that he's an economically good backup. He is cost controlled for 4 years. He's going to be cheap, and he's going to be reliable. He's a guy that you could throw out there, and he can at the very least make plays with his legs. So listen, when Carson Wentz gets hurt, he'll be available to play. He'll be competent, and he doesn't cost you a lot. When Carson Wentz was on his rookie deal, they were able to pay Nick Foles premium backup money to be there and be ready, and it won them a Super Bowl. Now that Carson Wentz is getting paid a lot, you can't afford to pay a backup a lot of money. And they need a competent backup because he's going to play. This is actually a nice pick. That's the way I feel about it. I like the fact that they went out and got somebody that they can rely on now as a backup that's cost controlled and that can put up numbers. And we've seen it with other teams. The Patriots had Jimmy Garoppolo as their backup. He played 4 games for them, and then he ended up getting traded for a second-round pick. So the Eagles could very well have him as a backup for 3 or 4 years and then flip him for the same pick they just used to pick him. They were able to get a wide receiver in round 1, maybe not the one you wanted. They were able to trade for Marquise Goodwin later on. They have possibly the best tight end tandem in the league of receivers. Everyone continues to forget that when they're mentioning Eagles needing a receiver, that they have Zach Ertz, who could easily have 100 catches, and Dallas Goedert, who's woefully underused for as good as he is. So you have plenty of weapons on this offense now. You have Miles Sanders, who can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think all those situations were good. You got your receiver in round 1. And now you have a cost-controlled backup who's going to play and could easily make a big impact at some point during your season. We saw the Eagles very barely miss making the playoffs certain years because of only a game or so being out. This could make a big difference, and one game Wentz misses turn the tide for them and change everything. So I think it actually wasn't as bad a pick as Eagles are making it out to be, and I think they survived because they picked some receivers down the line even after that to get more bodies in the room and acquiring Goodwin. I think they ended up having a solid draft, even if the Reagor one was a reach. I heard he was climbing up draft boards, but to take him over Jefferson was pretty bold. That one I'm not agreeing with, but I see where they were going. They're another team that was going for speed. They drafted that receiver from Boise State later on. They acquired Goodwin. They want speed on that roster. And you can't rely on Deshaun Jackson to be healthy. He just missed all of last season. So you have now replacements for Jackson to take the top off the defense. Who knows if Jeffrey's going to be healthy. If he's healthy, that's huge for them. But you have Ertz, you have Goddard, and you have a lot of other speed guys to stretch the field. If you can let Ertz and Goddard work short, the other guys work long, you can make this work and have a quarterback backup that's a value to your team more than, I would say, at least 25 other teams. This backup quarterback is one of the most important spots in the league on this team. So it's a huge get for them to have a reliable one and one that we know can play at least decently no matter what situation he's in.
Well, additionally, and before before Rob has some let's call it negative thoughts to say about the Eagles here, I personally do. I will say is that at first I was with the rest of the Eagles fans where it was like, my goodness, what are you doing? You absolutely destroy fans' hearts almost with the Jalen Reagor pick in round 1. I think, and this is something that Rob said earlier, going off a little bit on a little tangent, but I had to agree, was that, yeah, they wanted their man, but it also has to do just like with what the Giants did, where Dave Gettleman took his guy. He didn't care what pick it was. He didn't care about if he wanted to trade down. That's the same exact mentality that Howie Roseman had, I believe, where you also have the possibility of what's his face? With Alshon Jeffrey being guaranteed about $20 million this year when the contract was restructured. Now, I wouldn't pay Alshon Jeffrey a Subway sandwich, but hey, listen, he's come into Philadelphia and he was a Super Bowl hero. He was. He had one amazing catch, or actually multiple amazing catches in the Super Bowl. And I can't thank him for his service, but let's be real here. His time in Philly, and I personally believe being a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, his days are done. And I think that it was similar to, when, if you guys remember, when in Chicago, when Alshon Jeffrey was oft injured, his knees were terrible, everything along those lines. And they drafted Kevin White. And Kevin White was supposed to be that number 2 guy. And I see Nick's face here because Kevin White was supposed to be that number 2 and potentially guy that was going to take over for Alshon Jeffrey. Well, that didn't really work out because now he's, I think, a used car salesman somewhere in Arizona. So with whatever it may be, you have now a locker room with, I think, if I'm not mistaken, close to double-digit wide receivers. So you're going to have to make some tough decisions. Arcega-Whiteside, who was a second-round bust from last year. Greg Ward, who is now your slot guy, following a really fantastic latter part of the season last year when he was the only one to throw to. But then, additionally, you also had guys like Josh Perkins. It's terrible. So you have that. You have Deshaun, who's coming back. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the deal is, but there's going to be some tough decisions to make in Philly. I just think that with Jalen Hurts, and you look at some way back when Donovan McNabb was hurt multiple times, who came in to save the day? 2007, Jeff Garcia. Remember that name? Oh yes, we do. Made it to the playoffs, beat the Giants actually in that year. Also, and that's not a dig. That's just pure fact. But then also another time, AJ Feely was another one. Long live AJ Feely. God help him, because he was so bad in Philly, but he still was able to carry the load. And exactly what Nick said, to have a really good cost-effective backup in the second round, especially with the injury history of Carson Wentz, I'm slowly beginning to understand the pick because of the history also that the Eagles have done. But also with Nick's point where, do you really want to pay a Joe Flacco, someone like of his caliber, where he is on the steep decline? No, I wouldn't. But you could have also drafted some. Say that one more time.
Well, Flacco also gets hurt. That would have been a risky backup for that reason. You could have watched them both go down in consecutive games.
Right, exactly. So it's, and there was a lot of things where it came up where, is Carson Wentz's job at risk? That was the first thing that the media caught up to. And no, when you're getting paid $107 million guaranteed money, That's not going to happen. And in Philly, this is not Jacksonville, where you guaranteed Nick Foles almost $80 million and he was shipped off to Chicago. And now he could be the starter there because Mitch Trubisky's a disaster. And Nick knows all about that because he's spoken, let's say, ill about Mitch Trubisky a few times. Tyler Adelle, before we get to Rob, John DeNaro, I do apologize. I don't know. I did not remove you on my end. I don't know what the deal is here, but we've been having some issues.
So I actually I hopped on the phone with the Zoom customer service. They're actually having a lot of technical issues tonight.
Okay.
So from what I was told, a lot of Zoom servers or parties or whatever we want to call this, people are having problems joining in. Everybody, we obviously want to keep conducting our interviews with our Golden Stick Wiffle Ball representatives, and of course, get to our wrestling preview shows to promote the Essential Wrestling podcast. But they'll both be back on this show next week at their respective times.
All right, good. So May 1st. So again, we do apologize from all of us here at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. We do apologize, Al Carl, also John DeNaro, Golden Stick Wiffle Ball, and also. Guys. There you go. Exactly. So in case, so in case if you are watching, here is a terrible heart. I think we got it now. Good. So we'll see you guys next week for sure. So Tyler, now that you are back, let's hear your thoughts. Actually, first Rob DeLuca's thoughts, and then Tyler.
I gotta fill myself in. I just sat on the phone with Zoom.
Exactly. So let's hear it.
Here's a thing I think people are not looking at. What is one common denominator with Carson Wentz every year? He goes down. Maybe this Jalen Hurts pick, and obviously this is, a crazy conspiracy theory. Maybe he's not as healthy as people think he is. And that's why the Eagles needed to jump on this now. Because obviously, you're getting $107 million. You're supposed to be the starter. But obviously health pending. Maybe his pending health isn't where it needs to be. And that's why the Eagles are like, you know what, one more time, and that could be it for them all of a sudden. So I think that could be where the Eagles were, because so you wonder, I don't believe this is going to turn into a preseason contest or anything, mainly because there probably isn't going to be a preseason. But
right, that's true.
But yeah, I think the Eagles did this as a cautious pick, and especially as Nick said, Carson Wentz goes down pretty easily now. It seems like he's made of glass at this point, and we will have to see where it goes from here. But I do think the Eagles were smart in taking care of this now, because a fourth, it would be a fifth injury now. A fifth injury to Carson Wentz.
Right.
I think a lot of Eagles fans would be done. Their patience would be spent, and that would be enough is enough with Carson Wentz.
Well, not only that too, but additionally, something that I watched on Amazon Prime, All or Nothing. For those that have never watched All or Nothing on Amazon Prime, if you haven't, an amazing show. There's 5 total seasons. The Arizona Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, now the Eagles. I don't remember the others. I think the LA Rams were one. But really, really good stuff. And it's similar to a Hard Knocks, but a little less scaled down. And last year, you saw how the fans really booed the team, and how it affected some of the players as well. It was mentally, discouraging almost to some. The Eagles won the division at 9-7. But again, exactly what I said, though, is that this team, under this ownership and under this regime, really, I consider the Doug Peterson regime almost like, going back to the Andy Reid days, because he literally is. He's a disciple of the fat man, as I call him. Tyler, don't get offended. Now, listen, you know why? Hey, listen, you called yourself that before.
Someone else fat offend Tyler?
Because you've said it to you've said it on air as well. So, and seriously though,
I'm gonna put that in there for later.
That's okay. You completely can, because you've said it on air. So I'm just repeating your words from a few episodes ago.
Welcome to your personal hell, my friend.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. We still love you. It's it's the experience, and it's also the what needs to be said and done. You need to have a 1-2 punch, and you need to continue to blossom the quarterback room. Tyler, your thoughts on the Eagles, and or with Jalen Hurts or whatever.
It makes the pick again. It's a pick that made it's hard to look at the first round and look at any team that's not the Giants and think that their first round pick didn't make sense. Obviously, quarterback is a position the Eagles have really, for the most part, been struggling in, other than that one-hit wonder in Nick Foles. And that's not a dig, but literally all it was a one-hit wonder. There's no stability under center on that team.
Yeah, no, there's not, and there hasn't been the stability since, really, I hate to say it, since Donovan McNabb, since he was traded 10 years ago, actually. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of, I don't want to say controversy, but I think this year's draft really worked out well out of the basement of Roger Goodell.
So really quickly, Joe, there's something I actually I'm going to do my friend Al a little favor here, because I feel bad that he got cut, because he's, as he told us last week, he's a Patriot fan.
Yes.
He did want to talk about football for a couple of minutes and help out.
Yeah, of course. We do apologize to both Al and John as well, by the way. Yeah. Yeah,
he wanted me to actually tell you guys that he's a very big fan of the Kyle Duggar pick from the Patriots.
Yes.
Mainly, I don't know if you saw, but Kyle Duggar is the first player in NFL draft history to be drafted by a dog.
Yeah.
He's got a point there.
And with that pick, that dog is immediately better than Dave Gettleman.
Yeah.
If we're lucky,
that Division II player, and the dog did better.
And he got better with technology too.
Did he email himself 6 times when he was trying to make the pick?
The dog?
Yeah.
He probably called himself a good boy. But no, that's the extent. Al wanted me to tell you guys that this is now going to be his go-to guy from the Patriots. And let's go Patriots. I cannot disagree with more. Sorry.
Well, I do have to say that was pretty good from the Patriots. And you know what? And they actually they kept trading down. What a surprise. This is what Bill Belichick does. So in the interim, I do want to show all of our viewers what our very own Tyler Adelle was working on until there were some mishaps here. So I do want to show this here on the screen here, and from what he has done, and this is some surreal stuff. Excuse me. And during the quarantine time, Tyler was gracious enough to show us just before the draft what these teams looked like following free agency, and he broke it down into offense, and he broke it down also into certain ranks. Tyler, if you want to talk about so what I'm pointing to here with Josh Allen, what does 35 mean for those that do not know?
So basically, when you look at the depth chart, obviously, if you start at the top, you will see a picture of the team logo. Obviously, that's pretty self-explanatory. You see the team's record, their home and away record, their points for, their points against, basically how they did in their division, whether they, the small things you don't think you need, but when you're scrambling on your phone trying to find the information, it's nice to have. So these numbers that you see next to players such as like Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, TJ Yeldon, that's actually their ranking by position for the year of the 2019-2020 season. So obviously Josh Allen was ranked 35th among quarterbacks.
Where does that ranking come from?
That ranking came from ESPN.
Like by what? Was it like just how did you find it? I don't even know that exists.
their website.
All right.
All right. Well, I do want to say this, and I do want to point one thing out because I think me and Nick have, unified vision, if you will.
Nick and I.
Tyler, again, I do love you, but what is this? The way that their game went, in the
They might as well have.
right.
but-
That's what I'm saying. So I can't. So listen. So I can't fully fault Tyler because the way that their game went in Houston. When they were leading the entire time, it pretty much is they missed the playoffs. All joking aside, though, seriously, this, for those, and I'll keep going with this, he did the whole AFC, and I really have to commend Tyler for his work because
This ain't a string bean. We're in the middle of a quarantine. My brain is toasted. I'm going to mess up every once in a while.
and that's completely and that is completely fine. But still, you also broke it down with punters, long snappers, the special teams. And kick returners exactly from, in the depth chart 1 through 4, total defense 6th, really, really good stuff here. So for that, Tyler, very good job. And I do wish that we were able to use it on draft night. Extenuating circumstances forced us to cancel the show, but I'm glad that we are able to show our viewers exactly what you were working on a few weeks ago.
I'm sure if the world gets to a better place, we can use this right before the opening of the preseason.
That is very true, and we will be able to update that as well. 8:31 here on the East Coast. We've been speaking about the NFL draft for the last hour and a half, but I do want to conclude with the draft, and I want to know some sleeper picks and some overrated picks, and also. Who had the worst draft and the best draft? I want to start here, and I think who had the best draft, and I hate to say it, but I think it was the Dallas Cowboys, and I think who had the worst draft? Well, I think it's a little tough to say right now. I don't know if I have a worst right now because I do have a few. Let's hear your thoughts, fellas.
So for me, it's kind of one of those things. It's a lot easier to grade who had the best draft right now than it is to see who had the worst draft. You see it in all sports where you have people that are drafted in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round turn out to be all-stars, and the guy drafted in the 1st round turns out to be a nobody. So I usually, and Joey, you know this, I normally don't give out my worst draft ranking until pretty much the end of the regular season. I just think that's a fair way to do it. It's just, like I said, it's hard to tell how bad someone's draft is because a lot, and you see it in a lot of sports. A lot of these athletes don't convert to the pro level,
right?
As easily as they play at the collegiate level or hockey in the CHL level, basketball, they have their Euro leagues and so on and so forth. They can go on all day with different league types, but some people just fit the mold of a professional sport better than others. And it's hard to really tell who had a sucky draft just based off of what ESPN tells me. As far as who had the best draft goes, definitely Cowboys are definitely up there, but I have to say that the Jets honestly got everything they absolutely needed and wanted in that draft. I think they just outright hustled every team. They did what they needed to do to get their pieces. It would not surprise me if they were in the playoffs this year.
That would surprise me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think they did well, but that's definitely optimistic. I'd be thrilled, but they still have holes. Cornerback wasn't addressed as firmly as it could have been, but they were able to sign Desir. They traded for Wilson, so that might actually work out. I'm going to say a team that no one's mentioned. I think the Cowboys had the best draft. I already talked about that. A team that no one mentioned, though, I think Denver did an outstanding job at their draft. They went out, first 2 picks, went right for it. They got Jerry Jeudy, and they got KJ Hamler. They're trying to have Drew Lock succeed this year. He took over at the end of last season. He looked pretty good. They didn't have enough weapons. You have Cortland Sutton there already, who's a stud. You had Jerry Jeudy next to him, and you had KJ Hamler in the slot. Those are three outstanding wide receivers. You drafted Noah Fant last year at tight end. You drafted another athletic freak tight end this year. So now you have two good receiving tight ends. You had Phillip Lindsay at running back. You signed Melvin Gordon. You get another good running back. They replaced their center. They lost Connor McGovern to the Jets. They drafted a center. I just think they filled a lot of their holes. They did an outstanding job setting up Drew Lock to have a very good season this year. After some people weren't sure about him first being drafted where he was last year, now they've let him succeed a little bit with what limited help he had. They gave him a ton of help. They did a great job surrounding him with talent. John Elway is a much maligned GM sometimes for the decisions he makes. This draft, though, I think he absolutely nailed. I love what they were able to do early on, take advantage of the wide receivers in this draft, and really build a nice core of offensive skill positions. A team I was disappointed with, I'll say Seattle. They love trading down. They tried to get out of the first round and trade down right off the bat. They weren't able to, so they took Jordan Brooks, who's a linebacker. They already have outstanding linebackers. It was an odd choice of a player. He was a reach. He doesn't really fit them. It was an odd decision. It just didn't fit for me, so it was something that I was disappointed with early. Usually Pete Carroll's a little better with the draft, loves to trade down, accumulate picks. He wasn't able to do that, and this may have caught him off guard, but they have other needs. Their offensive line absolutely still needs work. It seems like it's that way every year. They could have tried to draft a defensive end because they might be losing Jadeveon Clowney. They ended up doing that in the second round. They got a decent player, but I feel like right off the bat, they almost wasted a first-round pick on a guy who might not even be able to contribute, and it kind of signals that they're going to have more linebackers in the team, where most teams are going to more of a nickel setup where there are less linebackers to defend against the pass. Seattle seems stuck in the past, and they're too dedicated to having linebackers on the field to defend the run. So I didn't really love that. But all in all, it was harder to find a bad draft because, like you guys said, it's all a crapshoot until we see it on the field. Coaching has so much to do with whether these turn out well or not. It's all about really who took advantage of value and situation and savviness. But those are just my 2 cents of two teams I wanted to highlight that we hadn't talked about yet.
Yeah, and that's another point I actually didn't bring up. And sorry, Rob, I'm cutting you off. But would you knock it off?
Let him speak. He might have some good things to say.
That cat doesn't know water from motor oil.
Probably still would have drafted Isaiah Simmons, though.
And that's also a really big factor that plays into which teams are really going to have, good or bad drafts. Perfect example, I think that we can all unanimously agree on here. A guy, he's our right quarterback, Tom Brady, who was picked in with the 6th round. Well, when you look back at his career now, it's almost mind blowing that he wasn't the first overall pick. But it's all it takes is that diamond in the rough, and she agrees. It's that diamond in the rough player that just fits a coaching style and fits a system. See, thank you.
Your cat would have picked Isaiah Simmons with the 4th pick. I don't doubt that.
Only because he was a Tiger.
Taking it off now. It's not happy with you, but I think he agrees.
No, yeah, but among teams who had a good draft, Dallas is up there. Jets are definitely up there. Another team I would say that just wasn't named yet, Baltimore. They seem to hit their needs every year. It's like a bodily function for the Ravens to draft well. They are literally just phenomenal at it. So that's another team I would say very solid. And yeah, you can't really judge if someone did bad until we play. But I guess if you want to go on paper, you really can't look further than, I guess, the Packers, literally addressing no needs and now forcing themselves to have to do something they don't do, which is sign free agents to big contracts, find their guy. And so that'll be interesting to see. But again, it all comes down to once we play the game.
I want to throw my 2 cents in here, and I do want to talk about my worst team on paper right now through the draft, and just by looking at some of
he already disagrees,
and that's completely fine. But I don't hear your cat meowing. Maybe
it's eating food now.
Oh, all right. So maybe when I say this and or my opinion here, she might drop her food or potentially choke on it because she might think that I'm insane. I think the LA Rams had probably the worst draft, and the reason why is because, well, first off, they signed way too many players to big money deals years ago, trying to buy their way to a Super Bowl. Now you had in the past tense Todd Gurley, and Todd Gurley did not work out for you. He did in the beginning, and then he unfortunately now has, most likely from what we hear and the rumors going around, is a degenerative knee problem. So, and in other words, or also known as some sort of knee arthritis, where his knee really is slowly winding down. So he's now in Atlanta. He was released. There's a lot of dead money there. So they also needed a running back. There's not a lot of money to play with. But then also you have to realize too, is that the linebackers, also the defensive line needed help as well. You got lucky in LA, or Les Snead got lucky, because Michael Brockers could not take his physical in Baltimore. And there was a problem with his ankle last year. So he was able to come back and he was able to fulfill those needs on the defensive line to help out Aaron Donald. Well, because you have Aaron Donald, you have Cooper Kupp getting paid, Robert Woods getting paid, Jalen Ramsey, who still has yet to be paid, Jared Goff to be paid, all that dead money from Todd Gurley. There is not a lot of room. You are slowly losing. Not even slowly losing. You lost players such as Corey Littleton, one of the best kickers in the entire league, in Greg Zuerlein. And I'm not going to say that, losing Greg Zuerlein was big, but I think it was pretty big because he was one of the most accurate kickers in the last few years. And we don't know what's going to happen in their new SoFi Stadium. We don't know. And exactly what Nick has said in the past is that LA is having a problem readjusting to football, professional football, that is. And they need help in terms of, fans. They need help with, just generally trying to get, the excitement back in Los Angeles. And that's not where they're at, because you have the Chargers, who really are almost in, I don't want to say a full rebuild, but they're getting there. But the Rams, though, they needed to address a linebacker. And if I'm not mistaken, it took them a full 7 rounds to draft a linebacker. There are some needs that they did address in the second round. They obviously did not have that first round pick because it went to Jacksonville in that Jalen Ramsey deal. Cam Akers, running back out of Florida State, second round pick number 20. They also drafted 5 picks later. Van Jefferson from Florida Gators in that Houston, in that Brandon Cooks deal. So you have Brandon Cooks that's now gone, and you're trying to recoup with these guys. I think they did okay, but I just think that out of everyone else in the draft who really did a pretty decent job, I think that there is a cutoff where you did pretty bad. And I think I think the Rams are slowly, they're not going downhill, but I think that everyone that they paid, it's going to come back to haunt them, because if these guys don't pan out this year, and I'm not saying this year, but even in the future, I think this draft is going to be a telling point of what the future could hold in Inglewood.
Especially look at that division. You have San Francisco is in the Super Bowl. Seattle's decent to good every year. Kyler Murray and Arizona are coming up. They need to be able to hit on draft picks now. Like you said, too many high-paid players. A couple of them didn't work out. Lots of dead money. Not a lot of draft picks. You traded a lot for Jalen Ramsey. So they need to hit on what they have. So you're right. These are very important picks. They use them to replace guys they lost. The running backs to replace Gurley. Van Jefferson is a vertical receiver to replace Brandon Cooks. So it's harder for them to add pieces to what they needed because they had to replace 2 guys that they had to cut because of bad contracts or trade because of, they needed the cash. So you're right. This draft may not have been able to take advantage of some of the needs and replace a guy like Corey Littleton, but we'll see if Terrell Lewis, the outside linebacker they drafted, is more of a cover linebacker like Littleton was, or if he's more of a pass rusher. I'm not so certain what role he's supposed to fill.
You too. Rob, Tyler, let's hear it. Any counter arguments or arguments in general before we move on to the next?
Definitely no counter argument with anything you guys said on that one.
No, you hit the nail on the head, really. I mean, what?
I mean,
There's not
yeah,
much more you
Nick
could
did
add.
more than you did, but that was great.
Yeah,
I think I personally believe that LA, that their time, and I think that right now you have, and this is the last point I'm going to make here with the NFL draft, because I do want to move on to a few other the NBA and a couple of things with baseball. But it's very difficult because you already have a residential fan base from the original LA Rams. And that's really what you're trying to build off of, because you had the St. Louis Rams for, I think it was 15 years. And now you're trying to recoup those fans from out in Missouri. And I don't know if you're trying to do that, but I think you're trying too hard now you're trying to buy these fans in LA. Well, they've been without football for almost 25 years. So now they come back. And if I'm not mistaken, again, me and Nick have had this conversation multiple times. And when I was out in Los Angeles twice, it is not a professional football town. I don't care what it is, because it's all about the Lakers. It's all about the Clippers. It's all about the Dodgers and the Angels. It's all about the Ducks and the Kings. No one cares about football out there. So I feel like that they're trying to do a little too much. And by signing all these guys, yeah, they're trying to do whatever. But now going into this $1 billion building that's built in Inglewood next to the LA Forum, to me, it's just, it makes no sense. I think that the Rams, they need to do really well with the draft, because, and thankfully for them, they're a little under the radar, because yeah, LA is obviously, with it being the media capital of the world, yeah, whatever. But the media is not 100% digging in on them like how other markets would, because yeah, they're still, they're actually pretty far down in the professional football world. So, or now they are anyway. They have a lot of work to do for sure. Moving forward, we've spent an hour and 45 minutes on the NFL draft because we didn't do this. We had a 718 sports update. Forget about it. And I'm sorry to those viewers, but there is no update. The update is that the NFL draft is done. And Mr. Irrelevant was by the New York Giants, and it was Tay Crowder, I believe his name was.
That's
and
correct.
A linebacker. Good. So I'm 2 for 2, Nick. I've been getting things wrong left and right. I don't know what's wrong with me. A lot. Don't answer that.
Par for the course.
Right, exactly. So also, just a few hours ago, the NBA decided that they are going to be allowing teams who have eased up the stay-at-home orders to open practice facilities on a individual basis. So it's a little tough to talk about again, because it is a little political, and that's not the point of our show. But we always have to touch base on something here, because again, the elephant is in the room. We can't really shy away from it, even, as much as we want to. But is this progress, Tyler? Do we see you going back to the Nassau Coliseum? With the NBA, potentially opening their doors? Do we see the NHL possibly opening their doors to their practice facilities, even on an individual basis?
I wouldn't expect to see hockey in the Coliseum again until next season, whenever that may be, whether it's October or November. The NHL is already starting to talk about neutral site locations. Some of the rumored arenas would be Toronto Maple Leafs, home arena, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Edmonton, Minnesota. They're going to try. They're going to keep them in. They don't want games in the hot spots. So whether it be the Barclays Center, the Nassau Coliseum, or the Garden, even Prudential Center, you can rule hockey out of New York till next season. It's not going to happen. I am just as much in the know as everybody else is as far as the media goes. If a story gets out on whatever form it might be, NHL themselves or a Bleacher Report, when you find out, it's news to me too.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because what actually DeLuca, Rob DeLuca texted me earlier, or I think it was earlier, about John Scott, legendary John Scott, and we all know about what he's done in the All-Star game.
Insider.
Exactly. Yeah, right. He brought up on Twitter that he has some sort of connection within the or I guess a source within the NHL about a possible return to training camp on June 1st. And I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm sure that that's probably, a positive attitude, I guess. And, I know we all have different feelings on what or how we want this to play out. But going back to the NBA, Nick, even on an individual basis, your thoughts about, these players that do not have a basketball court in their house, or potentially outside, or they're living in a hotel, or they're living in a condo. Is this good for those players? What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I've been very strict about this, about teams not wanting to take risks, cancel everything possible, keep people inside. But if this one's on a limited individual basis, they keep the facilities clean, people stay away from each other, it's very well organized and kept, safe distances and things like that, it's acceptable, because I understand that some of these guys don't have their personal courts and they want to be able to get them in there working out and things like that. So as long as everything's safe and the facilities are pristine, they're clean, they don't let outside people in, they keep it as safe for everybody as possible, I get it, and I'm okay with that one on a limited basis going forward. Just be extremely careful about every aspect of it, because once you start having one person get it and then another person comes in without it being clean, you're going to start spreading it to more and more families, and that's the last thing we need. They need to make sure they take every precaution to make sure it's okay. And if the NHL wants to follow suit, they have to do the same thing. Be as careful as humanly possible at every aspect of this, because the more people that go out and the more people that get it, the longer it's going to take for everything to be able to come back.
Right.
You really see this as important, make sure you do it right and don't let it spread further, because you're only going to hurt yourself in the long run.
Right.
And thinking about next season, I keep saying that over and over, should all be about trying to make it as safe as possible for next season to start on time. So don't jeopardize that by trying to rush into something now before we're ready and then end up having us miss half of next season because we're still recovering.
Yeah. I have to, as I've said, have to agree there. You two, what do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is not fun for any of us. We're all diehard sports fans here. We want our sports back, but we have to do it properly. We have to, believe me, I'm sick of watching all these old games. Like, they get fun to a certain extent, but it gets excessive after a while.
And you also know the result too.
Yeah, exactly. What what's going to happen. Like certain moments in the game, obviously, you'll give you that feel good moment. Like, if you're a Mets fan, you're watching the 9/11 game, Mike Piazza's home run, like something like that. But we need to get back to our sports, but we have to do it the right way. The problem is, if we do come back next season's going to start on time, because every sport is trying to finish this season. They are the NHL especially is insistent on not only crowning a champion, but also completing the regular season to get those final 12, 13 games done. And obviously it would be without fans, of course. There's not even a question that we won't be allowed into buildings until probably potentially fall of next year. I
think later than that, honestly.
Yeah, so we're not going to be able to go to a game for a while, but I think they're going to they're insistent on playing this season out and delaying the start of next season, which could, in theory, delay the following season, which for the NHL creates a problem
domino effect.
Because there is two seasons from now, it will be fine. But in the next, or 3 seasons from now, it'll be fine. But next 2 seasons, the NHL has a problem. They're expanding in 2 seasons. This could affect Seattle big time in terms of not only when can their expansion draft happen, but they have to try to, start up, and what's the biggest thing? Ticket sales for a brand new team. Absolutely huge. And if they can't have people in the building, we could see some big problems here.
Yeah, I think we could also see, I don't want to say similar to the XFL, where it's, strike two for them, where, they failed once. And I can't say that they failed this time because really this was extenuating circumstances that really it wasn't because it looked as if that, and you know what? And I hate to say it because I think, Nick, you said this and you said, oh, is this going to fail? You were like, oh, we're going to see another failure. But we didn't think, and I remember I spoke to my cousins about it. And I remember I said it to Nick, and Nick was like, yeah, I agree, or whatnot, or I don't remember exactly what it was. But in this situation, it wasn't in their control. Yeah, it failed, but it failed with an asterisk, I guess. I don't know. I think that the biggest thing right now is obviously to get everyone healthy, yada, yada, yada. We already know all that. I think also again, I do not want to go into this. I just want to say this one thing. Because I want to know if you guys watched The Last Dance. We'll get to that in a minute. With certain states such as Georgia opening their doors, I think, I'm not going to say my opinion about it, but what I will say is that some of these states that are opening their doors to the public once again, it's beginning to pressure some of these leagues to potentially not restart, but to slowly get things back to normalcy, I guess. Such as Georgia, such as Florida, reopening things, South Carolina slowly reopening things. Tyler said it, things up here in the north are not going to be open for a very long time. There's rumors obviously being, up here. I've heard June, I've heard potentially July. We're going to start, opening the faucet a tiny bit, and then if it becomes a mess, then we're going to slowly close it again. But it's again, don't want to get into the politics part. Fellas, we have 4 minutes left. Did any of you see The Last Dance?
Nope.
I really wanted to. I kept saying, I got to watch this. I had something specific going on when it first aired. I was going to watch it that night, and then something came up. I was playing video games with my uncle and my brother, so I was like, I'll catch it later. It's on ESPN+.
Yeah, ESPN Watch. I'll probably just stream the first two and then jump right into 3 and 4 when they air.
I might
There's about a 95% chance I slept through the episodes anyway.
I definitely want to, though. It's still something I want.
I'm ready.
I'm finding the time to watch all of them, but
all in good time. All in good time, I will see them.
Yes, well, I definitely do. I do recommend it for sure. I know Tyler is not a basketball guy, but even if you're not a basketball guy, this is the only thing that's live right now. And really, this is something that I said on last week's show, is that with The Last Dance, it's almost going to be like Super Bowl ratings. Seriously, because what else is on right now that is live and something that is groundbreaking? They also moved this, I believe the season premiere episode about, I think it was close to like 2 or 3 weeks. They moved it forward about 3 weeks.
If you want some help with that, as someone who's at ABC, I can help you out with that right now, because we're supposed to air the first couple of parts actually exclusively on ABC. Right. Because of what happened, we lost that. ESPN just kind of jumped in when it was like, look, we need this on the air now, so we're just gonna take it. And so ESPN took it and aired it now, as opposed to when it was supposed to start in June.
Right. That's when it was. Yeah.
With the first, I believe, 4
2
parts
months
on ABC. Yeah. First 4 parts were supposed to be on ABC, which would have been huge for us, but sadly we had to lose it. ESPN just took it from there.
Well, the good thing though is obviously you're all under the Disney umbrella, so it doesn't really matter where it went. ESPN, anyway. ABC, who, yeah, exactly. That's it's
I work for I work for the mouse. That's
right, exactly, and it all goes into Mickey Mouse's pocket. One last thing that I do want to bring up here, and I think that this is huge, and I think this is a perfect way to like almost a cliffhanger. And I think we'll get into this more when basketball comes back, fellas. Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. Rudy Gobert was the one to get COVID-19 first, back on March 11th, and that is where the Oklahoma City game against the Utah Jazz was effective immediately canceled, and that was when the NBA season was suspended immediately from there. Now, there were talks that there's a possibility of them two trying to rekindle their friendship on the court, off the court, whatever it is. And Donovan Mitchell was sick, and thankfully he didn't have any symptoms or anything along those lines. Rudy Gobert did. But the problem is that Rudy Gobert got a whole bunch of these guys sick, and he made a joke out of it. He made a mockery out of it. And I mean, in my opinion, if I were Donovan Mitchell, I don't know if I'd want out, but I don't think I'd be able to look at him the same. And again, I know Nick feels a certain way about it. Again, not being a germaphobe or anything, but with this magnitude of this disease that's going around right now, fellas, let's hear your thoughts in the last few minutes that we have.
So
could this be rekindled? Ever?
Well, let's take a quick look. The Lakers had this kind of thing happen where a center and a guard didn't really get along, and it kind of worked out for a while, but eventually it had to split. But I think we can all say we have coworkers we haven't gotten along with in the past, and you know what? You get through it, you figure it out. They don't have to be best buddies. They don't even have to like each other. They just
right. I'm looking at you right now. Yeah.
Yeah, giddy up. We're not coworkers anymore.
People looking at you.
But you know what I'm saying? Like you can not be best friends and still get along and work together and be fine. So
exactly, I'm looking at you right now. Yeah.
I don't think right now they're going to trade anybody. I don't think they're going to make any drastic moves. If their on the court relationship sours and it affects the play, then they're going to make a move. But I don't think anything's going to change or anything's really going to happen. They're going to just have to be around each other and deal with it until something drastic has to occur. But for now, I think it's being blown up kind of by the media into like this big story. But there's got to be plenty of teammates on every team that don't like each other that play together every day and just kind of put up with it and deal with it. You don't have to be best friends with every one of your teammates. It's not mandatory. It happens. Everyone has coworkers like that. People have family members like that where you get along with them just because you have to and you deal with it. So they're going to be fine. I don't think anything is ever really going to come of this. They'll both get over it. I'm sure Gobert is going to apologize several times. He doesn't want to be a nuisance. He doesn't want everyone to hate him. So they're going to get along in a professional relationship, even if they're never great friends again.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, he also has to apologize to the entire sports world because
he did issue an apology, but I'm sure it'll be stronger once he's like back on the court and in the flow of things. He'll apologize to all his opponents every time he sees anybody, every interview he has. I'm sure he's going to keep mentioning it. It'll get stronger as time goes on, but he did have a moment where he apologized already. So he started the ball rolling.
Rob and Tyler.
I think it's just a story being blown up by the media so people have something to talk about, rather, excuse me. It's just this.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's pretty much what Nick said. If once it starts costing them games, then they'll do something about it. Until then,
unfortunately, not unfortunately, but if for the time being, obviously, because there's no sports and you can't see how much this is really affecting their relationship on the court. In a way, everything kind of has to be considered hearsay.
Yeah.
Well,
and remember, you're also all, I hate to be that guy, but you're all listening to reporters and journalists that can't go anywhere near these guys anyway. So God knows if their source is even real.
Yep. Simple.
And from one that works in the media, I can 100% agree with Tyler because I've heard fabricated stories and some propaganda just to get some clickbait. It's a pretty sad world out there in the media, and it's whatever. We'll leave it at that. Rob DeLuca, cannot thank you enough for joining the two of us here, the three of us here. Oh my goodness, the three of us here. Wow, I am on a roll today. First I get
Nick.
Listen, yeah, exactly. First I get like three things right, and then I get the next four wrong, and then two. It's terrible. But Rob DeLuca, in all seriousness, cannot thank you enough for joining us here this evening on this Saturday night. I'm glad we were able to take you away from your Saturday night activities. Actually, I can consider four of us or 3.5 because Tyler's cat made an appearance a few times.
That would be 4.5.
Right. All right. So 4.5. So
you said 3.5.
No. Okay. Sounds good. So, so next week. So
very good thing you didn't go to Common Core math.
Right. Exactly. So as I'm trying to conclude this show here, next week on May 1st, fellas, I can't believe it's May 1st already, but May 1st next week, 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday night, the Primetime Rundown, episode number 24, will return with two guests once again, John Denaro and Al Carl. They'll be back. We do apologize to those two, to Golden Stick Wiffle Ball and to the Essential Wrestling podcast that will be on the Eastern Observer soon enough. And we do apologize. That is not, that's an involuntary problem that clearly we were having here. It was lagging on my part. It was people. Tyler said Zoom. It was right from Zoom's mouth. So we'll hopefully everything will be back next week. And then also this coming week on the Zoom interview series of the Primetime Rundown, we have Brendan Myers, St. John's University Radio Network's sports director. And also on Thursday, we conclude the week for the Zoom interview series with the Chicago Cubs hitting coach Anthony Iapoce. That will be tons of fun. Both interviews will begin at 6 p.m. For Nick Partain, Rob DeLuca, Tyler Adelle, and his cat and his hashtag not a Coke. I'm Joey Jarzynka saying good night from Long Island and from New Jersey. We cannot thank you all enough for tuning in right here from the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. We'll see you next time.